for raw interviews with witnesses and raw videos from the scene. Again, that's on our website, abc10.com/raw. And to get a link if you want updates anytime you need them straight to your phone, you can find all the latest updates. Just text us, Gilroy, at 916-321-3310, and we will update you. But it's fair to say a lot of our viewers just heartbroken with all the news that were coming in this morning.
Yeah, as we are here too. Brittany, thank you so much for that update. Okay, so again, we are just moments away from a news conference that is supposed to begin at 10 o'clock. They're running a little bit behind, and we're expecting to learn more about the gunman.
Right.
Of course, more about the victims, a second possible suspect, and hopefully a motive behind this all.
Yeah, a lot going on and a lot being spoken on Twitter, Facebook.
Yeah.
A lot of people across both aisles very concerned about all of this. And of course, we're keeping you updated as soon as that conference comes to us. Now, we will have a wrap-up immediately following the conference. And of course, streaming that on our ABC 10 Facebook and mobile app, and also at abc10.com. So a big deal here for people of not just Gilroy, Northern California, much of the entire United States. This is just another thing that happens once again. And a lot of people saying, you know, it's not shocking as much anymore.
Absolutely. If you're just now joining us, we're continuing our coverage of the tragedy in Gilroy where a shooting occurred yesterday around 5:40. A band was playing at a festival, a very family-friendly event in Gilroy, about 2 hours south of Sacramento. 3 people were dead, including a 6-year-old boy. The gunman, a 4th person, also shot and killed. And what's odd to me is there was such a police presence at the festival, they were able to take him down in a minute.
Right.
And I remember hearing interviews with so many people. They said from the first shot that rang out until they got an all clear from police, it was probably 10 minutes, an incredible amount of time, but I'm sure that was probably the longest 10 minutes of their lives.
Absolutely. And when you just continue to hear the stories that are coming out of there, whether it's, you know, radio or just even on television, on Instagram, everything, people are coming out with their version of what's happening. They all sound very similar, but you just hear the moments of despair in their voices and the panic that ensues, even if it is only a couple of minutes.
Yeah, you know, it's summertime in Northern California, so a lot of people are out. There's so many festivals in the area. This was a really big deal. If you've never heard of the Gilroy Garlic Festival, then a lot of people in that area definitely know what it is. It's a town of about 50,000 people, but they draw in. Last year they had 80,000, and repeatedly over the years they normally draw in about 100,000 people over 3 days. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how many people could have potentially been in the line of fire yesterday. A gunman cut through a fence. You know, we hear about security measures that were taken. They had security precautions in place, and he decided to cut through a fence and go around the security precautions. I hear that they had wands and they check people's purses to make sure they're not bringing in any dangerous weapons at the festival. And the gunman decided to cut through anyway. And a lot of you are pouring in online with reaction on social media. We're going to go over to Brittany right now. Brittany, what are people saying?
You know, the big talker right now, we're talking about a lot of things. And you think about it, a 6-year-old boy was killed. And as a mother, first thing I thought is, how do I protect my son? And how do I talk to my child about this so that we're not scaring them? So I was checking out some guidelines. If you have a kid that's in preschool or kindergarten, experts say you just want a simple one-line statement about what happened. Nothing, not a lot of details, just a simple statement. Elementary school students, you want to shield them just a little bit. So you want to tell them just a little nugget, but not a lot of details, because you're going to scare them. Now, if you have a tween, this is interesting. They say what parents should do is listen to their feelings and validate their feelings. That's what's very important to tweens. As we all know, that's a very awkward time in your life. Now, for teenagers, we're going to shift gears. What you'll want to do is look for a solution. So this is when you want to have that heartfelt conversation with your teenager, and then talk about what are some solutions. You are our future, so what are some things that you can do so this never happens again? So as a parent, again, we're all just talking about how do we talk to our children. Our heart's breaking for everybody in the community. And of course, we're going to continue this conversation throughout the day on TV, on Facebook, on our app, because as parents, we have to stick together. And everyone praying for the parents of the 6-year-old boy. And I know we talked to the grandma earlier today, and my God, my heart is breaking.
Oh my goodness, just to see when I saw the pictures of Stephen Romero, oh my gosh, he seemed like such a beautiful little boy, such joy radiating from his eyes. If you're just now joining us, we are continuing our coverage of the shooting at the Garlic Festival in Gilroy. We're going to come up to a news conference in a couple of minutes. Hopefully we'll learn more about the suspect, the victims, and the question that everyone wants to know is why. Maybe we'll get some answers for that all. I'm Kirsten Holmes.
I'm Carly Gomez.
Chestnut, Los Alamos, Sunrise, time 47. Active shooter at the Garlic Festival. You could start that way.
All right, here's what we know right now. A gunman killed 3 people, including a 6-year-old last night at Gilroy Garlic Festival. At least 19 others were injured in the shooting. The gunman's also dead this morning. Now, after a shootout with police, as of now, police also say they're looking for a second suspect based on witness statements. Of course, that hasn't necessarily been confirmed. They're still going about with that information that they have.
Okay, so maybe you've never heard of Gilroy before. It's about 2 hours from Sacramento. The festival was in a park right next to Gilroy High School. Last year, more than 80,000 people went to the festival over 3 days.
To have seen this event end this way, this day, is just one of the most tragic and sad things that I've ever had to see.
Okay, so let me lay it out for you how it all unfolded. It was the 3rd day of the Garlic Festival last night at the Christmas Hill Park. Police say that gunman used a tool to actually cut through a fence to get inside of the festival. A band was just starting their last song of the night. This was around 5:40 when shots rang out. People who were there had to run for their lives.
We heard the truck in front of us get hit by bullets like 3 or 4 times, and then that's when my friend Gray was like, "Those are not fireworks, let's run," and then we just started running.
Yeah, to go from having a good time with your friends and family to having to run for your life is a scary thing, but police say they got to that shooter in less than a minute. He was shot and killed there, but not before he killed 3 people, including that 6-year-old boy.
And we've learned this morning his name's Stephen Romero. He just celebrated his birthday last month. He was at the Garlic Festival with his family. His grandmother described him as a happy kid. She also spoke briefly about the gunman.
Has to be someone really sick because shooting a kid, and that's a family event.
Now, a number of victims are being treated right now. A spokesperson tells us their conditions range from fair to even critical.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers are with those victims, hoping they recover. Now, if you've never been, the festival again draws more than 100,000 people from year to year. Members of the 10-man band, they were just getting ready to play their last song, actually saw what happened, and they describe what they heard when those shots rang out. Listen.
And then he started shooting again in the direction of where all the food people were dining. It seemed, from my perspective, looked like he was just firing into the biggest bunch of people he could find.
Now, this shooting in Gilroy is making national headlines. Again, you see people there on your screen running for their lives, mass chaos. This was a really scary thing.
Yeah, definitely very scary situation here. And the shooting is really making national headlines. It's drawing reactions across the aisle. Brittany's been tracking this on our media platforms. Brittany.
You know what? I think when it comes to politics, we can all agree that we don't always agree. But one thing we are agreeing on is the outpour of support for a small community of Gilroy this morning.
We express our deepest sadness and sorrow for the families who lost a precious loved one in the horrific shooting last night in Gilroy, California. We thank the brave members of law enforcement. They never let us down.
Senator and presidential candidate Kamala Harris says it's simply horrific. I'm grateful to the first responders. She goes on to say our country has a gun violence epidemic that we simply cannot tolerate. Now, Governor Gavin Newsom also sent his support, saying there is nothing short of horrific. California stands with the Gilroy community. We have the conference right now. Let's tune in.
I am a public information officer with the South Bay Incident Management Team, currently working on the Garlic incident. Today we're here to talk with officials in the city of Gilroy regarding this event. First to speak will be Mayor Roland Velasco of the city of Gilroy. Thank you all for being here this morning. You know, one of my greatest honors in life was being elected mayor of this great community. And I can tell you that the people of Gilroy are strong, we're resilient, and during the course of this investigation, as law enforcement continues to research and investigate it, the Gilroy community will mourn, but we will get through it. On behalf of the community and the Gilroy City Council, I'm speaking to you today to provide a brief update on where we're at. Later on the agenda, you'll get additional information from our public safety personnel. As you know, yesterday afternoon, the city of Gilroy endured a tragedy that a very long night cannot erase. Mass gun violence is an epidemic in the United States, and yet one never imagined such a thing can happen here in our beautiful community. It's beyond sad to see a wonderful and charitable event like the Gilroy Garlic Festival that donates tens of thousands of dollars each year to local nonprofits. To have an event like this happen. As I said before, we are resilient and we will get through this. This morning, our prayers are with the families of those injured and killed in the senseless shooting. We stand with you and we will be providing whatever assistance we can in the days and weeks ahead. This morning, as we learn more about what occurred yesterday, I wish to commend the bravery of our law enforcement personnel who, in the middle of a chaotic situation, acted quickly and professionally to engage the shooter and to end the threat before more people could be injured or killed. And the chief will talk a little bit more about that. It takes remarkable bravery to run to a shooting when the natural reaction for all of us is to run away. We are so proud of our law enforcement who undoubtedly saved many lives by putting their own lives in danger. Now, I also want to mention our fantastic fire department. I happened to be in the triage area when the victims started to come in, and I could tell you that our fire personnel, paramedics, EMTs were there quickly, triaging, prioritizing, stabilizing each of the patients, and then getting them ready to transport out. Today and over the next few days, I, along with the Gilroy City Council, will be meeting and working with community leaders to assess the situation we now face in Gilroy in the wake of this shooting. We intend to come out of this horrible event in a stronger and obviously a closer community. Again, thank you for being here, and let me turn it back over. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next to speak will be Fire Chief Jeff Klett.
Good morning, everybody. As the mayor said, first of all, I'd like to thank our firefighters for responding heroically to this event. This is something that we trained for. In fact, had an active shooter training with our colleagues in the police department about a year ago, and we're actually planning another one because of another unfortunate event just north of us in Morgan Hill, also involving an active shooter. Luckily that we were at an event, so we had 6 total fire department personnel on scene when this shooting occurred, 2 on an engine in the park, 2 on bike teams, and 2 that were in an ambulance inside the park. So we were able to respond quickly to the situation when the shooting occurred. We had 12 EMS, public and private personnel also on scene, an EMT contract, and a public ambulance company there as well. The initial dispatch occurred at 17:42 hours. We sent 4 engines, and for note, we only have 3 engines in the city of Gilroy, so we sent all of our resources as well as our South County neighbors. 2 additional battalion chiefs, and then requested 16 local mutual aid engines to respond down here as well. Our Gilroy battalion chief assumed command at 17:45 hours, along with the first arriving fire engine that was dispatched from outside of the Garlic Festival event. We had a total of 6 ground ambulances and 2 supervisors from the county. We had 3 air ambulances, and we did a total of 16. There were 16 total transports, 13 of which were done by the fire department and the EMS agency. 3 of those, again, were air ambulances and 8 ground ambulances. And I will leave it to the police department to talk about the actual state of the deceased in this event. Thank you.
Next to speak to you, Police Chief Scott Smithy.
So I'll reiterate what I said at the press conference last night, and I've got a few additional details. And then we'll also be planning an additional update because I plan on having more information now that daylight's here and we're getting fresh resources in. So we'll try to put something together for you for later this afternoon. We've got the date and time established already, and as most of you know, the Gilroy Garlic Festival is an event that we put on every year. And we typically host between 80 and 100,000 people to our festival. It takes several thousand people a day volunteering to make this festival work. And so at the time that the incident occurred, you know, it was near the end of the final day. It was last night, Sunday. Questions that were asked, you know, regarding the security and the way that we manage and monitor it from a law enforcement and public safety perspective, is that we have police personnel on site the entire time of the festival. We actually create a police compound where we have a command center, a booking area, you know, all the things that you would need to run a major operation like this. The officers are deployed throughout the park, and they're assigned to different regions of the park, so they're spread out. We don't have officers all in one spot. When this call came in, the shots being fired, the closest team of officers responded immediately. They were there and engaging the suspect in less than a minute. The suspect was armed with an assault-type rifle, and he, as soon as he saw the officers, he engaged the officers and fired at the officers with that rifle. And I had 3 officers that engaged the suspect. And despite the fact that they were outgunned with their handguns against a rifle, those 3 officers were able to fatally wound that suspect, and the event ended very quickly. Of course, then we had the aftermath of dealing with the victims and the EMS side of things. We put out a call for help. We had over 20 agencies, federal, state, county, and local agencies from all over that responded people down into our park. And it was just incredible to see the cooperation and how quickly they put this together and how quickly they were able to render aid to people. I can't tell you how proud I am of the officers for being able to engage this guy as quickly as they did, because we had thousands of people there in a very small area, and you know, it could have gone so much worse so fast. And so I'm really proud that
All right, so that was the police chief of Gilroy, Scott Smithy, in a press conference about the Gilroy shooting yesterday at the Garlic Festival. He was just giving us an update, and I think we
got there as quickly as they
We might have him back.
I think we have him back if we want to go back to that press conference.
Out of the equation. We do have 3 people deceased, confirmed deceased. We have one who was a 6-year-old male victim. We also had a 13-year-old female victim, and then we had another male victim in his 20s. We don't have a motive for the shooting as yet. We did have reports of a potential second suspect. We don't have any confirmation that any second suspect did any shooting, but we certainly are investigating all leads to try to determine who that potential second suspect is and what exactly that person's role was. We found out, some of the federal agencies helping us out. We found out that the rifle that this suspect used was an SKS. It was a AK-47 type assault rifle. It was purchased legally in the state of Nevada on July the 9th of this year. And reports have been going out of potential suspect. And I will confirm that the suspect is the person that several news media have been inquiring about, Santino William Logan, who is 19 years old. And I say that name with some hesitation because I don't believe that somebody like this deserves the notoriety or the recognition. But I also understand that you all, want to have some confirmation of that. I think the last thing I'll say before I turn it over, I want to thank all of the agencies and all of the people that came to help. I don't even know how many people, but there was a lot. And when we put out the call for help, they came. Because it's such a large crime scene, the FBI has come in and offered some assistance, and we've accepted that assistance because of the size of the area that we need to cover. And so before we open it up for questions, I'm going to have them come up and talk a little bit about their role and how they're helping us with this case, and then I'll come back up.
Next to speak with you, Deputy Special Agent in charge of the FBI, Craig Fair.
Thank you. My name is Craig Fair. I'm the Deputy Special Agent in charge of the San Francisco Division of the FBI. First off, I'd like to express my condolences to the city of Gilroy and to the family, friends, and victims of this absolutely heinous act. The FBI's principal role is assisting the city and the police department of Gilroy in the investigation. Our preeminent and principal concern at this point is motivation, ideological leanings. Was he affiliated with anyone or any group? That still has to be ruled out and still has to be determined at this point. And we are supporting Gilroy Police Department in making those determinations. Our evidence recovery team, it's a sizable team. We have about 30 individuals out there right now collecting evidence. As we find evidence, as we flag it, as we mark it and map it, we're determining that the crime scene is much more expansive than what we originally thought, and it amounts to many, many, many acres. We appreciate the public's patience as we process this. It's done very slowly, it's done very methodically, and it's done for a reason should we have to use that evidence in prosecution later on. I'd also like to thank the first responders. As the mayor cited, in their heroism, the FBI personnel who worked tirelessly throughout the evening and will do so for the next several days. Our partnership with the Gilroy Police Department and the city of Gilroy as we move through this crisis, and members of the general public who are offering, continue to send in tips, photos, and assist with the investigation. Thank you.
We will now take a few questions. I ask that you direct your questions to me, and we will put them to the correct person. I saw that hand go up first.
Thank you. Probably for the chief, but you talked about the potential of another suspect. Do you believe there's somebody else out there, or is there the potential that those were erroneous reports and that they thought they saw somebody who might not be there?
We really don't know. We've gotten multiple reports that there may have been another person with him, that they ran this way or they ran that way, but different people give different versions, so we really don't know at this point.
I saw this hand go up next.
Will you be able to identify the victims? at this point?
We are not identifying the victims at this point. Typically, that's something that we leave up to the county coroner's office to make sure that all their notifications are done before that's released.
The gentleman in Jack.
Actually, two questions for you. Had your officers not acted quicker, would there have been more bloodshed? And would those officers wearing body cameras?
So the answer to the first question is there absolutely would have been more bloodshed, I believe. With the number of people in the small area that they were in, I think it's very, very fortunate that they were able to engage him as quickly as they did. And then the second part of the question is our officers do wear body cameras. Who was at the moment that this happened and who's had them on or what, I don't have that information yet, but we will get that as we move forward in the investigation.
Gentleman with the mustache.
Chief, could you give us a rough idea, sort of a laundry list of the type of evidence you are trying to gather? Because I know you want to try to find out what the motivation was. What type of things are you and other law enforcement agencies trying to gather to help try to figure out what triggered all this?
Well, there's a number of different aspects of an investigation like this, and we have partners from all different agencies. So, whether it's information concerning the suspect, whether it's information concerning this potential second person, there's a very, very large crime scene that needs to be processed diligently. There's all kinds of background information that we need to process. It's going to be a very prolonged and complicated process for us.
Can you give us, though, as a follow-up, can you give us some idea of things you're looking at? I'm guessing maybe computers, the types of people you're talking to try to learn more about him?
Yeah, I am not comfortable at this point because I don't have enough of a detail of that level of briefing to comment on that. I may be able to do that later today.
The gentleman with blue shirt under the TV set.
I don't know if it's too early, but at this point, have you spotted any red flags on social media? And is there any indication that are more involved?
I am not ready to comment on that yet. I don't have that level of detail either.
Are you familiar with him? We were told he was from Gilroy. Did he have a record, anything along those lines? And also, is he the one who purchased the gun legally from the mouth?
As far as his local background, again, I'm not ready to comment on that. My understanding that he is the one that purchased the weapon in Nevada.
We had seen that he had moved to Nevada. Can you confirm if he was living in Nevada? Do you know what brought him there? And then how long had he been back in California before this incident happened?
I don't have that information yet. I think he was living with family members, but he's originally from Gilroy. I don't yet know how long he was in Nevada or how long he'd been back.
One last question.
Many people have to rush away, obviously, from the fairgrounds. What are you telling people who are maybe wanting to return? And then the second question is, since this is an ongoing investigation, how secure is the fairgrounds and the surrounding?
Chief, would you like to address that?
Yeah, well, I would say that it's very secure. We have quite a large number of personnel out establishing a perimeter around the area because we have to do the evidence processing. There are people that were at the festival that literally ran away and left their belongings, and we have vehicles and there's vendor tents and whatnot. We can't allow them back in until we finished with the evidence processing portion of this. So we have a team that's set up to help assist those people to provide some support until we can get them back to their belongings.
Chief, when you talk about the victims, they were so young. We have 20 people under the age of 22 children. We talk a lot about the suspect here, but when you speak to all these young lives being lost and really even dealing with.
Well, I think any time a life is lost, it's a tragedy. But when it's young people, it's even worse. And it's very difficult. I don't know that I don't know what, if any, association there is. It seems that this was a random act, but again, we've got a long way to go before we can come to a determination what his motivation was.
That's all the questions we're going to take for now. I did make a commitment to the Spanish-speaking stations that I would give an interview outside in Spanish. So if you folks would like to set up outside, I will take care of that. Any other questions we will take later. There will be future conferences that we put together.
Confirm the total number of injured.
The total number, as we understand it, was 16. 4 people deceased and 12 injured. One of those deceased was the shooter.
Jimmy, thank you so much.
I'm sorry, I can't hear your question. I don't have that.
All right, that news conference for the deadly shooting at the Garlic Festival is wrapped up now, and we did learn a lot of new information now.
Yeah, let me give you some details that we just learned. They did focus, and we're going to start with focusing on the victims here. We all know that the 6-year-old boy lost his life, Stephen Romero, but we learned about 2 other victims, and their ages are really young here, too. We have a 6-year-old boy, that was Stephen Romero, a 13-year-old female, and a man in his 20s. We don't have a motive right now, but we can confirm that the shooter's name was Santino Liga, and again, he's the alleged shooter. Now, a lot of people ask about the gun used. The gun involved was an AK-47. It was bought legally in Nevada on July 9th. Those are just a little bit of a few details that we learned in this shooting. Now, in case you don't know what happened, we are breaking it down for you. A gunman killed those 3 people, including, again, that 6-year-old boy, Stephen Romero, last night at the Gilroy Garlic Festival. At least 19 other people were hurt in the shooting. The gunman is also dead this morning after a shootout with police. This morning, we're also learning that his name, the gunman's name, is Santino Liga. As of now, police say that they're also looking for a second suspect based on witness statements. This is how it all unfolded. It was the 3rd day of the Garlic Festival last night at Christmas Hill Park. Police say the gunman used a tool to cut through a fence to get inside of the festival. A band was just starting the last song of the night around 5:40. That's when shots rang out. People who were there had to run for their lives. You see the video here, really chaotic scene. I cannot imagine going from enjoying a Garlic Festival outside to having to run for your life. Pretty chaotic scene.
Yeah, definitely a chaotic scene there. We were learning a lot of new information, not just from, the chief deputy there and the police and the fire department, but also from the FBI. And they say their concern right now is motivation, the ideological leanings, and affiliated with anyone or any group. And of course, that's what that big concern is right now and what they're looking for. They say they have 30 individuals really all across the site looking for evidence, anything that they could potentially use in court that could stand up and hold on if they needed to. So a lot of things that we're learning from this.
All right. So, when we're looking for why, we look into the suspect in the scene or in a case like this, and there was no comment on criminal history. They were asked that, and the police, the FBI, no one had a comment on his criminal history, but they said that he was from Gilroy and he did legally buy the gun in Nevada. Another interesting point was that at the Gilroy Garlic Festival, there was a lot of first responders on hand. They had fire department crews there. They had police crews there. There was such a police presence that they even had a command center. And without that police presence on site at the scene, Chief Scott Smithy said that the loss of life or at least bloodshed could have been much higher if the police had not been on scene at the time of the shooting.
Yeah, definitely. And he talked about how they didn't just have a clump of officers in one place. They were deployed to different parts of the park and ready and standing by. And of course, the officers that were there only had handguns to use while he was using the assault rifle, and they were able to actually get him down within less than a minute. So that's just an amazing feat.
It's funny that you point that out because that scene, he kept his composure, the chief of police said, Scott Smithy, until I guess it kind of hit him right there that his officers had a handgun when the suspect had an assault rifle, and things could have been a lot worse for those officers.
Yeah, definitely. And 3 people's lives were taken, and right now we know that the most about one of them, who's a 6-year-old. His name's Stephen Romero, and his family tells us he had just celebrated his birthday last month. He was at the Garlic Festival with his family. His grandmother described him as a happy kid. She also spoke briefly about the gunman who we now know used an AK-47 type rifle.
Yeah, now there are a lot of you on Facebook letting us all know how you feel about it. What are they saying, Brittany?
Yeah, it's definitely something we're all talking about. There's a large outpour on our Facebook page. Now, Jody says she was actually at the Garlic Festival. It was so sad. She said she just went to the Peach Festival in Placerville, and the last thing on her mind is that someone would come up and shoot the place. Now, Alex says we need to know what can we do. While thoughts and prayers are kind and neutral, we need to stop feeling like we're just waiting for the next thing. And Star says this put chills down my spine. She was there. She left around 4:30, right before the shooting happened. She says, my heart hurts for people that were truly affected by this. This is crazy. And another big discussion we had this morning on our newscast is how do you talk about this with your children? I mean, a 6-year-old boy was shot and killed. So I checked in with experts about what you should say to your children. Now, if you have a preschooler, you want to keep it very simple. Some people are at a festival and they got hurt. Elementary students, you want to actually shield them from everything that's happening. So if they should see a video, they see a picture and ask you questions, you want to focus on first responders. So some people were in trouble, but first responders were right there to help you. Now, tweens, it's a very hard time for them, right? So they have a lot of questions as well. You want to validate their feelings. So you want to listen to what they have to say, and then you want to acknowledge what they're saying. Now, teens, what you want to do for them is actually ask them, this is what's happening right now. What do you think we can do to change it? So it's definitely a big conversation. A lot of parents are going to be having this evening around the dinner table. And of course, we'll stay connected. Now, you can get any coverage you need anytime you need it with the deadly shootings at abc10.com. We have the raw videos as well, raw interviews with people as well. Again, that's abc10.com/raw. And you can find the latest updates as they fold. Carley, Keristen, a lot of people talking about it. If you want to get a link straight to your phone, get updates anytime you need it, just text the word Gilroy to 916-321-3310. That's 916-321-3310. But a lot going on.
Yeah, a lot going on indeed. Okay, so in case you didn't know what happened, thank you, Brittany. We're breaking it all down for you. A gunman killed 3 people, including that 6-year-old boy, a 13-year-old girl, and a man in his 20s last night at the Gilroy Garlic Festival. At least 19 others were hurt. The gunman is also dead this morning. We have Carlos Herrera. He is live there. He's been there all morning. Carlos, tell us, what are you seeing out there at the Garlic Festival, or what did you hear at the press conference?
A lot of information here this morning. In fact, the media briefing just finished about 5 minutes ago or so. So we're seeing all these media outlets stepping out of this room here, this conference room. We saw a lot of activity here. We heard mainly from the chief of police here at the city of Gilmore, and we also heard from the mayor pretty much thanking the law enforcement officers and their quick response. He said, had they not responded so quickly in less than a minute, then this probably would have had a different ending. The chief also did confirm the number of injured people, which is now at 12. Again, we know 6 of those patients are at a Santa Clara Valley Medical Center. He also confirmed 3 people who were victims who were shot and killed. We told you about the 6-year-old boy earlier this morning. He also said it's a 13-year-old girl among the victims killed, and it's a 20-year-old male. So again, all of these victims under the age of 20. So again, I'll repeat that. 6-year-old boy who we told you about earlier this morning, a 13-year-old girl, and a 20-year-old man. We also heard the information about the second suspect. We had heard those reports earlier this morning and last night. The chief of police did say they still don't know if there is someone else involved in this. They're hearing different reports from several different people. People saying that they did see a second suspect. Another person saying that they saw someone else run away from the shooter when that was happening. So again, this is all under investigation right now. He says this will take a long time to process and to really gather all that information. We also heard from the FBI, Craig Fair. He's a deputy special agent here in charge. We heard from him and how the FBI has been helping out with the investigation. They offered the assistance to the city of Gilmore because it's such a large scene here. So again, they've been helping. They're now at the festival grounds. They'll be there for quite some time. They say there's a lot of evidence there. There's still processing. In fact, a lot of people left their belongings there. A lot of cars still parked in the festival grounds. A lot of tents, vendors leaving their belongings there. And of course, people are not allowed to come in or out of there anymore until they really continue processing all that evidence. For the FBI, the big concern, though, is the motivation and the affiliation of the suspect. So again, they will be there getting that information. And as well, they did confirm the name of that suspect, 19-year-old Santino William Lagan. 19-year-old Santino William Lagan, who they say purchased an AK-47 style rifle legally in Nevada. That would happen in July. So again, the identity of that shooter has been confirmed this morning. But again, this morning a really sentiment of sorrow and sadness. The chief of police couldn't really fight back his tears, saying that there were 3 lives cut too short. In fact, there were short lives. All 3 victims under the age of 20. They'll have another media briefing later on here at the same location at the police department. We'll bring that to you, of course, with the very latest. For now, that's the very latest here from the Gilroy Police Department. We'll send it back over to you.
All right, thank you for that, Carlos.
Yeah, thank you, Carlos. Now, in case you don't know what happened, we're breaking it down for you. A gunman killed 3 people, including a 6-year-old, last night at the Gilroy Garlic Festival. At least 19 others were injured in the shooting. Now, the gunman is also dead this morning after a shootout with police. This morning, we're learning that his name is Santino Lagan.
Yeah, he was 19 years old. He was from Gilroy. As of now, police say that they are also looking for a second suspect based on witness statements. Now, the problem there is that they're getting multiple reports from different people, so they're getting different versions, but they are looking into the situation. This all unfolded on the 3rd day of the Garlic Festival last night at Christmas Hill Park. Police say that gunman actually used a tool to cut through a fence to get inside of the festival without going through the security entrance. A band was just starting the last song of the night around 5:40 when those shots rang out. Again, you're looking at it there. It's a really chaotic scene on your screen. I cannot imagine what those people are thinking now. To have lived through something like this, they will never, ever forget. Now, you can get continuing coverage anytime on this deadly shooting at abc10.com. From raw interviews with witnesses to raw video right from the scene. It's all on our website, abc10.com/raw. You can find that plus all of the latest updates as they unfold. Now, to get a link sent straight to your phone where you can find all of these updates, just text the word Gilroy to 916-321-3310.
All right, yeah, definitely a lot of developing information. And of course, he said there's going to be another update coming up into the afternoon hours. So we will bring that to you as soon as it becomes available. Be streaming it online, on Facebook, and then on air as well.
All right, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I hope you have a good rest of the day.